Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Frances, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. If you're not, I see you. I thank you so much for always watching my videos and commenting and sharing, because I know like most of you do share my videos and I really appreciate. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how I made this jumper. Sorry I'm too short, I need to like step on something. So this is what the jumper looks like. You can wear it with the shirts, you can wear it with a leggings, so you can just wear it like that. It all depends on you. But before I start with the tutorial, I just want to say that this is really heavy, like it's so thick and heavy. So I think the kind of yarn depends on how it's going to turn out. So if you want it to be really heavy, you can use a really heavy yarn or a thick yarn, and if you don't want it to be that heavy, you can use a lighter yarn that isn't too thick. Hey guys, so in this tutorial I'm going to be using my size 7mm hook and my weight 4 yarn. So this is from a brand called Bravo, which is a Turkish brand. So I'm going to be alternating between my black yarn and my white yarn. So I had those leftover white yarns and I decided to just use the white and the black yarns. So you can alternate between two different colors of your choice, or you can use one color. It all depends on how you want your sweater to be. So for this sweater, I'm going to start by making the waistband. So I'm going to start by making the waistband. So for the waistband, I'm going to chain 12 for my foundation chain. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So I have 12. So if you want the waistband to be shorter, you can make a few chains, or you can make the chain longer. It all depends on how wide you want the waistband to be, but I made a chain of 12. Now for the first row, I'm going to chain 1. In the next stitch, I'm going to go into the next stitch with 1/2 double crochet. So for a half double crochet, you're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. You have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So that's what a half double crochet is. I've come to the end of the first row. For the second row, I'm going to chain 1 and turn over. So I'm going to be working with the rib stitch, and for that I'm going to be working with the back loop of each stitch. So I'll be putting 1/2 double crochet into the back loop of the stitch. So yarn over and go into the back loop of the first stitch, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, yarn over and go into the back loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 3, yarn over and go into the back loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 3. So now I've come to the end of this row. Chain 1 and turn over, and you're going to repeat what you did for the second row. So you're going to put 1/2 double crochet in the back loop. You're just going to continue with this until you get the length you want for your waistband. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll let you guys know how many rows I did for my waistband before we move to the main body of the sweater. I did a total of 100 rows of half double crochet in the back loop and I joined the two ends together with a single crochet. So you can make your waistband wider or narrower. It all depends on how wide you want your sweater to be. So now I'm switching to my white yarn. So I already tied my white yarn at one end. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by chaining one. Now I'm going to put one single crochet in the rest of the stitches. So I'm going around the waistband with one single crochet. I'm just putting in one single crochet in any stitch that my hook can enter. I'm at the end of the first row and I went round with one single crochet. So to finish up this round, I'm going to slip stitch in this chain one that we did at the beginning. Now for the second row, I'm going to be working with the puff stitch. So I'm going to start by chaining 3, 1, 2, and 3, and this is going to be part of the first puff stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over and go into this stitch connected to this chain 3. I have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 2 loops. Now yarn over and go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through. I have 4 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 3 loops left, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2. I have 4 loops. Yarn over and go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 5 loops. Yarn over and go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2. I have 6 loops. Now yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch. And the next stitch, yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. I have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 2 loops. Yarn over and go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 3 loops left. Yarn over and go back into the same stitch and pull through. Yarn over and pull through 2. I have 4 loops. Yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 5 loops. So you're going to continue this until you have 7. So it's only the first puff stitch that you're going to do, and till you have 6, because of this chain 3 serves as part of the puff stitch. But for the rest of the stitches, you're going to keep on going back into the stitch until you have 7 loops left. So I have 5 loops left. Yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 6 loops. Yarn over and go back into the stitch one last time. Yarn over and pull through. I have 7 loops left. Now yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. So this is going to be the back of the sweater, and this is going to be the front, because this is where the puff is coming out. So you have to make sure that your seam is outside, because this is going to be the back of the sweater. So because my seam is inside, I'm going to loosen this and start all over. So since I slip stitch into the chain 1 space, instead of unraveling and starting all over, I can just turn this and go this way. So because my seam is here, this is going to be the back of the sweater. So for the second round, like I said, start by chaining 3, which serves as your first double crochet. Now go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. You have 2 loops left, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and pull through 2. I have 3 loops, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and pull through 2. I have 4 loops, yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. 5. Now I have 6 loops. So because of the chain 3, the chain 3 is going to make it a total of 7. So I have 6, yarn over and pull through all 6 loops. Now single crochet into the next stitch. And the next stitch, go in with the puff stitch. So yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and go into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 3 loops, yarn over and go into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 4, 5, 6, and 7, yarn over and pull through 7. Single crochet into the next stitch, and the next stitch do your puff stitch. So yarn over and go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go into the stitch and pull through 2. So you're going to keep on doing this till you have a total of 7 loops on your hook. So yarn over and go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have a total of 7 loops on my hook, so yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch, and the next stitch to your puff stitch. So yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch. I have 5 loops left. I have 6 loops. Now I have 7 loops, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Single crochet in the next stitch. The next stitch, go in with the puff stitch. So if you notice, the puff is showing on the other side. So this is going to be the front of the cardigan, because this is where the puff is popping out, and this is going to be the back of the cardigan because this is where the seam is, and this is the flat side of the puff. Yarn over and pull through 7 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch, do a puff in the next stitch. So I'm alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet stitch. So yarn over and go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 7 loops, yarn over and pull through all 7. So I'm just going to keep on alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet stitch till I get to the end of the round. I've come to the end of the second row, so I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 I did at the beginning of the row. So I'm just slip stitching into the So I've slip stitched into the chain 3 stitch. For the third row, I'm going to chain 3, which serves as my first double crochet of the first puff stitch. Now I'm going to go into the first puff stitch, so I'm just putting my hook into the stitch of this first puff. Now you're going to do a puff on top of the puff stitch. So you chain 3, yarn over and go into the stitch, yarn over and put through 2, go back in, yarn over and put through 2, go back in, yarn over and put through 2. I have 4 loops, go back in, yarn over and put through 2. I have 5, go back in, I have 6 loops, yarn over and put through all 6 loops. So this is my first puff stitch plus the chain 3, making it 7. Go into the next stitch with a single crochet. Now in the puff stitch, go in with a puff stitch, yarn over and go back into the puff stitch, yarn over and put through 2, go back in, yarn over and put through 2, go back in, yarn over and put through 2. I have 5 loops, go back in and put through. I have 6, go back into the puff stitch, yarn over and put through 2. I have 7 loops, yarn over and put through all 7 loops. Single crochet in the next stitch. On the puff stitch, go in with a puff stitch. So yarn over and go into the puff stitch, yarn over and put through 2, go back into the puff stitch, yarn over and put through 2, go back in. So continue until you have 7 loops. 4 loops, yarn over and put through 2, 5, 6, 7, yarn over and put through all 7 loops. So this is what the puff stitch is looking like. So for this third row, you're going to repeat the second row. You're just going to be alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet stitch till you get to the end of this round. So I'm done with the third round, and to close up this round, I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 3 I did at the beginning of the row. So now I'm going to be switching to my black yarn, so I'm just going to fasten off this. For the fourth row, I'm going to start by tying my yarn at this end. I just fastened it off. So you don't have to worry about the stray yarns, because when I'm done, I'm going to weave it in. So I'm just tying the black yarn. Now that I have my black yarn, I'm going to be going around the sweater with a single crochet. So I'm going to start by chaining 1. I'm going to put in 1 single crochet into the puff stitch and 1 single crochet in the single crochet stitch, 1 single crochet in the puff stitch, 1 single crochet in the single crochet stitch. So for this fourth row, I'm just going around with single crochet. So I'm just going to keep on putting 1 single crochet in each stitch till I get to the end of this round. Now I've come to the end of the fourth row, so I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 1 I did at the beginning of this round. For the fifth row, I'm going to repeat the fourth row, so I'll be going around with 1 single crochet. So chain 1, go into the first stitch with 1 single crochet, go into the next stitch with 1 single crochet. So I'm just going around with 1 single crochet. So I started with 2 rows of puff stitch, now 2 rows of single crochet. So I'm just going to continue with 1 single crochet till I get to the end of this round. Now I have come to the end of the 5th row. I'm just going to slip stitch into the chain 1 I did, and then I'm going to fasten off because I'm going to be switching to my white yarn. So for the 6th row, I'm going to start by attaching the white yarn at this end. So this is what the front of the sweater looks like, and this is the back of the sweater. So for the 6th row, I'm going to start by chaining 3. So I'm going to be working with the puff stitch. So the sweater is going to be 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. I'll just be alternating between 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So I'm going to start by chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is going to serve as the first double crochet of the first puff stitch. So yarn over and go back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 2 loops, yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 3 loops, yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 4 loops, yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 5 loops and do it one last time. I have 6 loops plus the chain 3 I did, making it 7. Now yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch and do a puff stitch in the next. So yarn over and go into the next stitch and pull through 2. I have 2 loops, yarn over and go into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 3 loops, yarn over and go back into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 4 loops. Now I have 5. I have 6. I have 7. So it's only the first stitch that I'm going to be doing 6, but for the rest of the stitches I'm going to be doing 7. The main reason I'm doing 6 is because we already have our chain 3 to make it 7. So yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch. Do a puff stitch in the next stitch. Do a single crochet in the next stitch and do a puff stitch in the next. So yarn over and go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, go back into the stitch, yarn over and pull through 2. I have 7 loops, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Single crochet into the next stitch and do a puff stitch in the next. So you're just alternating between 1 single crochet and 1 puff stitch. So I'm just going to continue with the single crochet and puff stitch till I get to the end of this round, and I'll be alternating between 2 rows of the puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet, meaning after this round I'm going to do another row of puff stitch before I do 2 rows of single crochet. So I'm just going to do this till I get the length I want, and then I'll show you guys how to do the armhole. So just do a few more rows till you get the length you want for your cardigan, and then we'll move to the armhole. I'll let you guys know how many rows I did when I'm done with the body of the sweater. I did a total of 20 rows, alternating between 2 rows of the bubble stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So I'm not counting this first single crochet I used for the base. I started counting from this, and I did a total of 20 rows, meaning 10 rows of the bubble stitch and 10 rows of the single crochet. So alternating between 2 rows of the bubble stitch and 2. For the lower part of the sweater, I did a total of 40 rows. So I'm not counting this first single crochet I used for the base. I started counting from the bubble stitch. I did a total of 40 rows, alternating between 2 rows of the bubble stitch and 2 rows of the single crochet. So you can make this longer. It all depends on the length you want for your sweater, or if you're going for a crop sweater, you can decrease the amount of rows you're going to do. It all depends on you. So now to form the armhole of the sweater, I used my stitch marker to mark off both sides of the sweater. So I just marked off half of the sweater to divide the front panel from the back panel. So I have my stitch marker on both sides. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the front panel. So work with the front panel and then we'll move to the back panel. I'm just going to tie my yarn at this end where the stitch marker is. Since I ended with a single crochet row, I'm going to move over to the puff stitch, and since I'm using my white yarn, I'm just going to tie the white yarn. So now that I've tied my white yarn, I'm going to start by working with the I'm going to start by chain 3, sorry. So 1, 2 and 3. Now in this first stitch, go in with the bubble stitch. So yarn over and go in, yarn over and put through 2, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and put through 2, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and put through 2. So continue till you have 6 loops on your hook. So I have 6 loops, so I'm going to yarn over and put through all 6 loops. So the chain 3 serves as part of the bubble stitch, that's why I'm doing only 6. But for the rest of the stitches, I'm going to keep on repeating till I have 7 loops on my hook. Now single crochet in the next stitch. In the next stitch, go in with the puff stitch. So yarn over and put through 2, yarn over and go back into the same stitch and put through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch and put through 2, yarn over and go back into the stitch and put through 2. I have 5 loops. Yarn over and go back into the stitch and put through 2. I have 6. So now I have 7. So yarn over and put through all 7 loops. Now single crochet into the next stitch. In the next stitch, do your puff stitch. So you're just alternating between 1 puff stitch and 1 single crochet till you get to where you have your stitch marker. I've gotten to where the stitch marker is, and this is for the front panel. So from this stitch marker, From this end, the stitch marker to the stitch marker marks off the front panel. So now that I've gotten to this end, since I'm doing 2 rows of puff stitch, because I'm still following the pattern for the body of the top, I'm still going to be switching between 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. I just wanted to show you guys how to mark off the armhole. So we're going to work on the front panel, and when we get the length we want, we're going to switch over to the back panel. So I'm just going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn over. Now in the first stitch, go in with a puff stitch. So like I said, I'm going to be doing 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So I'm just working in a puff stitch in this first stitch. 4, 5, and 6. Then yarn over and pull through a 6. Now single crochet in the next stitch, the next single crochet stitch, and go into the puff stitch with a puff stitch. So I'm just going to keep on alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet row till I get the length I want. Then I'll let you guys know how many rows I did for the armhole, and then we'll move over to the next part of the sweater. I'm done with the front panel and the back panel to form the armhole, so you don't have to worry about the stray yarns. I'm going to weave them in later. So I just marked up the front panel, and I just divided the front panel from the back panel so that we can have the armhole on both sides. And I did a total of 22 rows, alternating between 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So you can make this longer, it depends on how wide you want the armhole to be, but I just did 22 rows, alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet stitch. So now to form the shoulder panel, I'm going to join the front panel and the back panel. Join the front panel and the back panel. So you can mark off where you want your neckline to be or how wide you want the neckline to be. So I'm just going to start by joining this, but since I want this to be the front of the sweater and the puff to be the back of the sweater, I'm just going to turn this inside out. So this is kind of really thick and heavy. So this is going to be the back of the cardigan or the front. It all depends on which one you prefer. But since I'm using black for the same, I don't really think it's going to be noticeable even if I wear this as the front. So now I'm just going to stitch this side. So like I said, you don't have to worry about the stray yarns because you can weave them in after you're done. So now that I've tied my yarn at this end, you can use your stitch marker to mark off where you want the neckline to be, like I said. So it all depends on how wide or how narrow you want the neckline to be. So now that I've joined my black yarn to this end, I'm just going to stitch the 2 ends with a single crochet. I've joined the front panel to the back panel and I just stitched 25 stitches from this end and 25 stitches from this end. So this is my neckline. So like I said, you can make your neck hole wider or narrower. It all depends on how wide you want your neckline to be. And this is my armhole. So now for the sleeves. So now I'm done with the shoulder panel and I formed my neck hole. So for the sleeves, if you notice, I already did one sleeve. So I'm going to show you how I did the sleeve on this side. So I was planning on using the white yarn, but it wasn't going to be enough, so I just decided to switch to the black yarn. But you can just continue with the pattern for the body for the sleeves. It all depends on you. But like I said, the white yarn wasn't enough, so I decided to switch to the black yarn. And honestly, I prefer how it looks right now than if I had used the pattern for the body of the sweater. So now for the sleeve, I'm just going to start by tying my black yarn at this end. So you can just tie your black yarn at any end, but I'll just start from this end. So now what I'm going to do is I'll just go around the armhole with one single crochet. So chain one and go into each stitch with one single crochet. So just go into each stitch with one single crochet. You're just going into like any hole that your hook can enter, because there's no particular stitch to put your hook in. So just try to put your hook into any hole that you can put your hook into and go in with one single crochet. So I'm sorry for the background noise, but I think they are cleaning, so hence the noise. So I'll just continue with one single crochet around the armhole, then I'll show you guys what to do. Now I'm done going around the armhole with one single crochet in each stitch. So to finish up this round, I'm going to slip stitch into the chain one I did at the beginning of the round. For the second round, start by chaining 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be working with the puff stitch for this round, so yarn over and go into the same stitch connected to the chain 3. Yarn over and pull through 2. I have 2 loops left. Yarn over and go back into the same stitch and pull through 2. I have 3 loops. Yarn over and go into the stitch and pull through 2. I have 4 loops. Yarn over and go back into the same stitch. I have 5. Yarn over and go back into the same stitch. Now I have 6 loops. So plus the chain 3 I did at the beginning, making it 7. Now yarn over and pull through all 6 loops, sorry. Now I'm going to the next stitch with one single crochet, and the next stitch go in with a puff stitch. So yarn over and go into the stitch. Single crochet into the next stitch, go into the next stitch with one puff stitch. So we're just alternating between the puff stitch and one single crochet, which is the same thing I did for the body of the sweater. So I'm just repeating the pattern for the body, and what I did is I did 5 rows of the puff stitch and then 2 rows of single crochet. So I'll just do this till I get to the hem, and then I'll show you how to do the hem of the sweater. But you can do 1 row of puff stitch and 1 row of single crochet. It all depends on how you want to alternate your colors or how many rows you want for each colors. But like I said, the white yarn was not enough. That's why I decided to use the black yarn. So in order to save up the white yarn so it will be enough, I did 5 rows of puff stitch for the black yarn and then 2 rows of single crochet. So 5 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. Or like I said, you can do the same thing I did for the body of the sweater, which is 2 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So it all depends on you, but I did 5 rows of puff stitch and then 2 rows of single crochet. So I'll just do 5 rows of puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet until I get the length I want. And I did 1 2 3 4, so I did in 4 rounds, and then I'll show you guys how to do the hem of the sweater. So I'll just be alternating between the puff stitch and the single crochet. Now I'm done with the sleeves, and I did 4 rows. Oh god. So now I'm done with the sleeves, and I did 4 sets alternating between 5 rows of the puff stitch and 2 rows of single crochet. So now I'm just going to work on the hem of the sweater, which is the cuff side. So for that, I'm going to start by attaching my yarn at one end. So you can start from any end. For the cuff, I'm going to start by making a chain of 20. So it all depends on the length you want for your cuff. So if you're going for a shorter cuff, you can reduce the amount of the amount of chains you're going to make. I'm going to make a chain of 20. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So now I have a chain of 20. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch. So chain 1, going to the first stitch with 1 single crochet. Going to the next stitch with 1 single crochet, and the next stitch with 1 single crochet. So you're just putting 1 single crochet into the chain stitch. I'm done putting 1 single crochet in the chain stitch. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now to start a new row, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch and continue on the chain. But because I'm trying to decrease the stitches because I want the cuff to be small, I'm going to slip stitch into the next 3 stitches. So I slip stitch into the first one, slip stitch into the next stitch, and slip stitch into the third stitch. Now turn over, work 1 single crochet into the back loop of this chain. So go into the first back loop with 1 single crochet, go into the next back loop with 1 single crochet. So you're just working with the back loop because you want to get the rib stitch or the rib look. So I'm just putting 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch. I've come to the end of this round. I'm going to chain 1 and turn over. Now continue with 1 single crochet in the back loop of each stitch. So put 1 single crochet in the back loop of each stitch till you get to this end. So I've come to this end and I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So the next stitch after this stitch, I'm going to slip stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. Sorry. Now turn over. Put 1 single crochet in the back loop of the first stitch, go into the next stitch with 1 single crochet, go into the back loop of the next stitch with 1 single crochet, go into the back loop of the next one with a single crochet. So you're just working with the back loop, and when you get to this end, chain 1 and turn over and continue with 1 single crochet. So when you get to this end, slip stitch into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 and continue. Or if you want your cuff to be wider, you can just slip stitch into the next stitch and continue with the pattern. But just continue with 1 single crochet in the back loop till you get to this end. I've gotten to the end of the rows, so I'm going to slip stitch in the last 2 stitches. So slip stitch into the next stitch and the next one. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to join the cuff together. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose the side of the sweater you want as the back of the sweater, because that's where the seam is going to be. So since I chose the puff side as the back of my sweater, the seam is going to be at the side. But it doesn't really matter, because since it's a rib stitch, even if you join it together, it's just going to look like a rib stitch, not like a seam. So I'm going to join the 2 ends with a single crochet. So I'm just joining the 2 ends of the cuff with a single crochet. So I'm done with the cuff of the sleeves and I'm done with the 2 sleeves. For the neck, since I'm going for a turtleneck, I'm going to repeat what I did for the cuff on the neck hole. So I'm going to tie my yarn at one end. So since it's a turtleneck, you can decide how many chains you want for your turtleneck. Depends on how really high you want the turtleneck to be, or how short you want your turtleneck to be. So it all depends on you and what you prefer. but I'm going to make a chain of 40. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 29 30 31 32 33 34 35 36 37 38 39 40. So I made my chain really long because I want to have a turtleneck that I can fold. So it all depends on how long you want your turtleneck to be, like I said. So now I'm going to chain 1, go into the first stitch with 1 single crochet, go into the next stitch with 1 single crochet. So I'm just putting 1 single crochet in each stitch till I get to the end of the chain. Now I'm done going. So I'm done putting 1 single crochet on the chain stitches. Now to finish up this round, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So slip stitch into the next stitch to close up the round. Now to start a new round, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch, turn over. So since I'm working with the rib stitch, I'll be putting 1 single crochet in the back loop. So going to the back loop of the stitch with 1 single crochet, going to the back loop of the next stitch with 1 single crochet. So like I said, I'm repeating what I did for the cuff, but the only difference between the neck and the cuff is, since I'm not trying to reduce the amount of stitches, I'm not going to be slip stitching into 3 stitches. When I get to this end, I will just slip stitch into 1 stitch and continue. So just put 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch. Now I've gotten to the end of this row. To start up a new row, I'm going to chain 1, turn over, put 1 single crochet into the back loop of the first stitch. Now continue with 1 single crochet in the back loop of the rest of the stitches till you get to the end of this round. I'm at the end of this row, so to finish up this round, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Now to start a new round, I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch, turn over and put 1 single crochet into the back loop of the single crochet. So you're just going to continue with this till you get to, or you're done going around the neck hole. So each time you get to this end, you're going to chain 1 and continue with 1 single crochet in the back loop along the chain, and then when you get to this end, around the neck hole, you're going to slip stitch into the next stitch to close up the round, and then slip stitch again into the next stitch to start up a new round. So I'll just continue with this till I'm done going round, and I'll show you guys what to do next. So I'm done with the neck of the sweater, and this is what it looks like. So I can fold it if I want, or I can leave it like this. So like I said, you can make the neck the length you want. It all depends on you. So this is what the end result of the sweater looks like, and I'll just take my time to weave in the ends, the loose ends, and that's it for this tutorial. So if you like this tutorial, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next tutorial.